Imagine waking up one day and realizing the person you trusted more than anyone has torn apart everything you thought was unbreakable. The person who promised to love you through everything has now opened the door to a secret you never saw coming. It doesn't just shatter your world, it breaks something deeper inside you. What happens when the one person you thought would never hurt you, hurts you in the worst way possible? Hi, I'm Clara, and this is the story of how my perfect marriage crumbled in an instant, how my deepest trust was betrayed, and how everything I thought was stable, secure, and unshakable was turned upside down. The evening felt normal. Tom and I sat down for dinner, the soft hum of background music filling the air as we exchanged the usual stories from our day. The scent of our favorite pasta dish drifted through the house, and everything felt comfortable, predictable. I should have known something was off the moment Tom broke the silence. But nothing could prepare me for what came next. Tom, always the calm, level-headed one, looked at me with a glint in his eye that I hadn't noticed before. He seemed almost excited. I should have seen the warning signs, but instead I smiled, thinking he was about to tell me something trivial. Then he dropped the bombshell. "I've been thinking," he said, a hesitation in his voice that made my heart skip a beat. "I think we need to try something new. I want you to be with someone else. Just for a night." I froze. My fork clattered against my plate. My mind raced, but no words came out. Was this a joke? Some kind of test? We talked about fantasies before, yes, but this was different. Tom looked at me, his eyes wide with that calm certainty I knew so well. His voice was steady, like he was suggesting we try a new restaurant or take a weekend trip. "I think it could make us closer," he said, almost too casually. "It could bring something fresh to our marriage. We've been doing great, but maybe this could make it even better. More exciting." I wanted to scream, to ask him why, to demand answers. But instead, all I could do was sit there paralyzed. Why now? Was this some sort of test? Was he planning to use this as a way to escape the monotony of our routine? Or had something changed in him, something I wasn't seeing? I felt every emotion rushing through me in a whirlwind. Anger, confusion, betrayal, and strangely, curiosity. But most of all, I felt an overwhelming sense of panic. Was this my fault? Did I miss something? I couldn't answer any of those questions. All I could do was nod, barely processing what he had said. "I need time to think," I said softly, trying to steady my shaking hands. The silence in the house was deafening as I sat at the kitchen table, the weight of Tom's propositions still heavy in my chest. Days passed, and every moment was consumed by my internal battle. I didn't want to seem judgmental, but at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to step into something I couldn't control. I didn't want to lose Tom, but what if this pushed us too far apart? What if it destroyed everything we'd worked for? I asked myself these questions over and over, each time more desperate for an answer that wouldn't come. But then again, what was I afraid of? He'd already asked me to do something I never thought he would. Why not follow through? What if I could reignite that spark we'd lost somewhere along the way? I could feel Tom's eyes on me, his words weighing down on me like an anchor. He reassured me that this was only an experiment, a way for us to reconnect. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, no emotions involved, nothing that would threaten our marriage. "We'll set clear boundaries," he said. "This won't affect us if we stick to the rules. Just honesty, no strings attached. And you can stop whenever you want if it feels wrong." For the first time, the idea didn't seem entirely foreign. But the doubt didn't leave. Still, I agreed. Maybe it was out of fear of pushing him away, or maybe it was just a desperate attempt to fix something broken between us. So, I nodded. It wasn't easy, but I agreed. Tom had done his homework. He found someone he thought would be perfect, a man named Luke. From everything I was told, he was respectful, professional, and above all, understood the importance of boundaries. But the moment I met him, I was thrown. It wasn't that he wasn't what Tom described, but his presence was overpowering. Luke wasn't just confident, he was magnetic. Every word he spoke had a purpose, every gesture filled with an energy I hadn't anticipated. I had always been able to control my emotions, or at least, I thought I could. But Luke? He had a charm that I couldn't explain, an effortless allure that made my nerves skyrocket. I was nervous, maybe even scared, but I had agreed to this. So I had to stick with it, right? Our first meeting was painfully awkward. I could barely look him in the eye, unsure if I was even supposed to be doing this. But Luke? He stayed calm, giving me space, never pushing, never crossing any lines. Slowly, I felt that tension dissolve just a little bit, but every moment spent with him was a reminder that this wasn't just some casual fling. It was real, and I was walking on a tightrope. As we continued to meet, I found myself thinking about Luke more and more, even when I shouldn't have. I didn't want to admit it, but my mind kept wandering back to him, even when I was with Tom. The feelings I was trying to avoid weren't fading, they were intensifying. And the worst part? I wasn't sure how to stop it. Things began to change so subtly, I almost didn't notice at first. But with every conversation I had with Luke, something shifted inside me. It wasn't just the physical connection I had expected, there was an emotional pull too. I didn't know how to explain it, but I felt it deep in my gut. I tried to convince myself it was just part of the experience. It was a temporary escape. No strings, no feelings. But with each meeting, it became harder to convince myself of that. Luke wasn't just a distraction. I felt things for him that I hadn't felt in years, and that scared me. Tom? He seemed further away than ever. His support felt empty, his words distant. It wasn't just that I was turning to someone else, it was that Luke made me feel seen again. Like I mattered. And the worst part was, he seemed to feel the same way. It was then that I realized I wasn't just caught up in the excitement of an affair, I was falling for him. And with that realization came the crushing weight of guilt. How could I be feeling this way about Luke when I had promised Tom that I wouldn't let anything get out of control? My heart was torn in two, half of me wanted to pull away, but the other half didn't want to let go of something that made me feel alive again. Tom's distance from me didn't come all at once, but the signs were undeniable. It started small, quiet dinners, less eye contact, fewer meaningful conversations. At first I thought it was just me, but soon, Tom stopped making an effort to connect too. I tried to ignore it, but the guilt became unbearable. Tom began to notice. He would ask me if something was wrong, but I brushed him off. I told him it was just work stress, that I was tired. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just that. Every time I saw Tom's face, I felt like a stranger in my own life. His attempts to reach me only seemed to push me further away. Our marriage, once strong and steady, was now a fragile thing. Every conversation felt like a battle, every touch from him felt like a reminder of everything I was losing. And the worst part? I didn't know how to fix it. I was torn between the guilt that weighed on me and the desire I had for Luke. The secret I had kept from Tom was slowly tearing me apart, and I couldn't decide which was worse, the lie I had told or the truth I was too scared to confront. The air felt thick, suffocating, as I heard Tom's footsteps approaching. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know how deep it had gone. I had been avoiding him for days, unsure how to face him with the truth, but I hadn't expected him to find out this way. The moment his voice broke through the silence, I knew it was over. Clara. His voice cracked. What is this? He threw my phone down in front of me, and there it was, messages between me and Luke. My heart stopped. The words hit like a punch, but I wasn't prepared for the look on Tom's face, the hurt, the disbelief, the devastation. He had trusted me. We had built everything together on trust, and now, that foundation was crumbling. I didn't mean for it to happen, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I felt invisible, Tom. You weren't there emotionally, and Luke? He made me feel alive again. His eyes, those eyes I thought I knew so well, were filled with pain. He wasn't angry at first. He was just broken. How could you do this? He asked, his voice hollow. I didn't know what to say. I had no excuse for betraying him. All I could do was face the truth I had buried for so long. It wasn't just a mistake, it was a betrayal. And I could see it in his eyes, he would never trust me again. The door slammed shut behind me, and I stood there for a long moment, unable to move. Tom's words echoed in my mind, leave. I can't look at you anymore. My hands shook as I packed the few things I could carry. I wanted to scream, to beg for forgiveness, but I knew it was too late. I had shattered everything. The guilt of what I had done suffocated me. As I walked out of the house, I could feel every step like a weight dragging me deeper into despair. Tom was angry, hurt, and I deserved it. I had broken the most sacred part of our relationship. The worst part came when Lily, our daughter, found out. Her eyes were full of tears, full of anger. "You ruined everything," she yelled at me. "You destroyed our family." Her words cut deeper than anything else. How could I have done this to my own family? How could I have hurt the people I loved most? I moved in with a friend, but nothing felt right. I was alone, isolated, and the guilt consumed me. I had made my choices, but the consequences were more than I had ever imagined. I didn't just lose Tom, I had lost myself in the process. The silence in my new place was deafening. I could hear my own thoughts, but they weren't the comforting ones I had hoped for. They were full of regrets, full of the knowledge that I had destroyed everything. And then I learned the truth that I had been dreading. Tom had already started seeing someone else. He was with someone new, someone who didn't carry the emotional baggage I did. The realization hit me like a cold wave. He had moved on. But it wasn't just him. Luke, too, started distancing himself. He'd never wanted anything serious. He had his fun, and now he was gone. I was left with nothing. No husband, no lover, just an empty house and an empty heart. I realized then that I hadn't just destroyed my marriage. I had destroyed my own sense of self. I had let desire cloud my judgment, and now I was paying the price. The loneliness was unbearable, and the guilt was suffocating. My choices had left me isolated, with no one left to turn to. I knew I couldn't go back and undo the damage I had caused, but I had to try. The first step was reaching out to Tom. I wrote him a letter, one filled with raw emotion, filled with regret, and a deep apology for the pain I had caused him. In the letter, I poured out everything I had been feeling. I took full responsibility for my actions and begged for his forgiveness. I knew it was unlikely that he would ever want me back, but I had to at least try. And then there was Lily. I had hurt her too, and I had to make things right with her, even if that meant accepting that things might never be the same. I realized that before I could ever hope to rebuild anything with Tom, I needed to rebuild myself. I needed to heal, to face the mistakes I had made, and to work on becoming the person I had lost along the way. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't be quick, but I was determined to change. I stand at the edge of everything I once knew, looking back at the shattered pieces of my life. How did I get here? I had everything: trust, love, a family. And yet, in my pursuit of something outside of it, I ended up losing everything that mattered. It wasn't just the affair. It was the years of ignoring the cracks in my own heart, thinking that the thrill would fill the emptiness. But it didn't. It never does. Now I'm left with the aftermath: a marriage in tatters, a daughter who feels betrayed, and a soul that's searching for redemption in the rubble I've created. I don't know if Tom will ever forgive me. I don't know if I'll ever deserve that forgiveness. But one thing I do know is that I can't undo what's been done. All I can do now is move forward, trying to be better, to learn from my mistakes. It's a long road ahead, full of pain, reflection, and hopefully healing. But for the first time, I'm ready to face the truth, no matter how hard it is. So here's the question: what would you do if you were in my shoes? Could you ever find a way to rebuild love and trust after it's been shattered? Or is betrayal a wound too deep to heal? Share your thoughts in the comments. I need to hear from you. I want to know if you think there's any hope for redemption, or if Clara's journey is one that can't be undone. And if this story struck a chord with you, don't just sit there, hit that subscribe button right now. Join the community that's unafraid to dive deep into the messiest parts of relationships. Trust me, you won't want to miss the next episode. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because these stories, they'll make you question everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and the true cost of betrayal. Let's unravel this together.